Like whenever people hear BMF,
Right.
they always say the first artist of BMF was Jeezy.
Right.
Back then, the BMF crew ruled the streets, Big Meech especially. But looking back, their alliance with Young Jeezy turned out to be a decision they'd later regret. Some members say it all unraveled when Jeezy allegedly turned on Meech during his trial. The drama boiled over into a gun standoff involving Jeezy and some BMF affiliates at a party. Meech and the crew quickly realized just how dangerous Jeezy could be. Many claimed that Jeezy's rise to fame leaned heavily on Big Meech's influence, his reputation bolstered by BMF's street power. Big Meech and his brother, Southwest T, weren't your average hustlers. They came from a rough background, and seeing no legitimate way out, turned to the drug trade. Over time, they built one of the most powerful drug operations of their era. Meech's passion for music eventually led him to start the BMF Entertainment label, a move some saw as an attempt to clean up his image. This label attracted artists like Young Jeezy. Rumor has it Jeezy was the first artist signed, though he denied ever being officially on the label's roster. Despite that, Meech heavily supported his rise, backing him financially and otherwise. Jeezy never shied away from their connection, often reminiscing about Meech's extravagant ways. Like that one time Meech spontaneously chartered a plane and brought 300 people along for the ride. They partied in style, but all that glitz couldn't keep the storm from rolling in. When federal authorities closed in, everything changed. BMF had already stamped its dominance across North Carolina, Ohio, and Tennessee, leaving a trail of drugs and violence. Law enforcement had been watching, waiting, and finally closing the noose. Eventually, a wiretap on Meech's brother brought the whole operation crashing down. The feds stormed in, dismantling much of the BMF network and their affiliates. Yet Jeezy emerged unscathed. While whispers swirled that he'd been fronted significant amounts of product, kilos of cocaine, he avoided prosecution. When Meech landed behind bars, he reportedly reached out to Jeezy several times. But Jeezy remained silent. Meanwhile, Blue Da Vinci was still hitting interviews, proclaiming his loyalty to Meech, while also calling out Jeezy's supposed love as nothing more than an act. Over the years, Jeezy's statements only fueled suspicions. He insisted he and Meech were just friends from different worlds, refusing to acknowledge any deep ties to BMF. This didn't sit well with Blue Da Vinci, who openly challenged Jeezy's claims, asserting that he'd been a part of BMF before the fallout. Then came Meech's jail interview, where he branded Jeezy a liar and accused him of breaking the code by turning his back. Meech even went so far as to say Jeezy's career would crumble once Meech got out, likely a reflection of the belief that Meech had played a major role in Jeezy's early success. When Southwest T was released, Jeezy mentioned him in a track, but it was clear he wanted to keep his distance. In the song, Jeezy implied he didn't owe him anything. When pressed about his connection to Southwest T, he downplayed it further, claiming they'd only spoken a few times. But word on the street told a different tale. People had their own theories about what really happened. Some believed Jeezy was simply trying to avoid getting dragged into the chaos. Not everyone bought that excuse. One guest during an interview made it clear everyone wanted a piece of BMF when times were good. But once Meech got locked up, the loyalty vanished. Even Meech himself didn't hold back, openly calling Jeezy a coward. While Meech served his time, some of his crew weren't about to let the disrespect go unanswered. Jeezy stayed cool under pressure, even when someone pulled a gun on him. "Shoot," he said, daring them to pull the trigger. In the end, no one fired, but they still snatched his chain. That wasn't the only tense moment either. Blue Da Vinci, another BMF affiliate who ended up behind bars, joined the chorus of those pressing Jeezy about Meech once he got out. BMF wasn't just another street crew trying to make a name, they were on a completely different level. In the early days, they started off hustling weed just to cover bills. But everything changed when they connected with Ed Boyd and the 50 Boys. Boyd was a major player in Detroit's crack game, and working with him opened Meech and Terry's eyes to the massive money-making potential in the drug world. Weed was one thing, but cocaine? That was the real moneymaker. Of course, when you're moving like that, trouble is never far behind. Meech and Terry soon found themselves clashing with a heavy hitter in Detroit's drug scene, a man named Ladon Simon. Things reached a boiling point when La tried to take Meech out in a drive-by shooting. But despite coming dangerously close to death, Meech refused to back down. Instead, he and Terry decided to cut ties and find their own connect. Once they secured their own coke supply, their operation exploded. They didn't just compete, they dominated. While many big-time dealers end up dead or behind bars, Ed Boyd managed to bow out gracefully. According to a DJ Vlad interview, Boyd still considers them cool to this day. He knew when to walk away, but Meech and Terry, they weren't going anywhere. Before long, Meech and Terry were Detroit's kingpins, supplying nearly every major dealer in the city. But that success came with enemies, especially Law. At one party, tensions between their crews turned violent, and bullets started flying. Law claimed he used Meech as a human shield. In the chaos, Law's brother Elvis was fatally shot. Law released Meech and rushed to his brother, but the shooter hit him 5 times in the back. Somehow, Law survived. The loss of his brother only made him more dangerous. A few months later, he went after Meech again, this time in broad daylight. Meech was in Law's neighborhood partying at a diner when things took a deadly turn. Law had just suffered 2 devastating losses, his brother and his 10-year-old nephew, who had been beaten to death. Overcome with grief and rage, Law allegedly pulled a gun and shot Meech multiple times. For most people, getting shot would be a wake-up call, a reason to step back. Not Meech. Just days after the attack, he was back on his feet, more determined than ever to elevate BMF to new heights. Detroit was locked down, but Meech had bigger ambitions. In 1990, he moved to Atlanta, looking to expand the empire. While Terry held things down in Detroit, Meech turned his attention to the East Coast. But instead of strong-arming the competition, he took a different approach. Meech hit up Atlanta's hottest clubs, dropped ridiculous amounts of cash, and made sure everyone knew his name. That's how he met the city's top players. Instead of picking fights, he supplied the city's biggest dealers, fewer battles, bigger profits. With their Colombian plug shipping weight through Florida, BMF was a finely tuned operation. Meech's strategy, flashy spending, steady networking, and keeping drama at bay, was paying off. The money, the power, the allure, it all kept growing. It was only the beginning. When the feds began closing in on their supply chain, Meech had to make a move. He headed west to LA to secure a new plug, and just like that, BMF reached another level. Within a few short years, their operations spanned Alabama, Florida, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, North Carolina. You name it, they were there. By the early 2000s, BMF wasn't just a drug empire anymore, it was a brand. Meech and Terry had long been immersed in the rap world, rubbing shoulders with big-name artists and living the high-profile lifestyle. But Meech pushed things further when he launched BMF Entertainment. On the surface, it was a record label and promotions company, but it also served as a way to launder their money. It seemed like a savvy move, but Meech's flashy, larger-than-life persona brought a lot of heat. Terry, always the quieter of the two, knew all that showing off was bad news. He had always believed that throwing money around so publicly would bring the feds down on them. And he wasn't wrong. Meech, though? That was just his style, rolling into a new city, hitting the hottest clubs, and dropping $50,000 to $100,000 in one night. All that stuntin' put him on the radar of local hustlers and the authorities alike. As BMF Entertainment grew, so did the spotlight. Meech wasn't just spending money, he was flaunting luxury cars, showing off his mansions, and even plastering billboards with the BMF logo. The whole world was watching. Eventually, Terry had enough. He saw the writing on the wall and started distancing himself. Then, in November 2003, the breaking point came. Meech was involved in a deadly shooting at Club Chaos in Atlanta. The clash with Anthony Wolf Jones, Diddy's former bodyguard, ended in gunfire. Wolf and his friend Lamont Gertie were killed, and Meech himself took a bullet in the backside. The police arrested Meech and charged him with double homicide, but the case didn't hold up. The judge placed him on house arrest. Even though Meech avoided a conviction, the damage was done. His arrest drove an even deeper wedge between him and Terry. BMF's unity began to crumble. Terry stayed out west, running his end of the operation, while Meech kept up his flamboyant ways in Atlanta. At Meech's 34th birthday party, tensions boiled over. A crowd of his guys showed up wearing free Big Meech shirts, even setting up a monitor so Meech could address the party from house arrest. It was a celebration of his larger-than-life persona, but for BMF, it was another sign of trouble on the horizon. Tensions reached a boiling point. Allegedly, people started pulling out guns. While nothing major went down that night, the writing was on the wall. BMF was unraveling. The feds, who had been watching since the 1990s, finally got their breakthrough in 2004. A small-time Atlanta dealer, DeCarlo Hoskins, turned informant and led them to two key figures in BMF, Omar McCree and Jeffrey Lahr. The authorities tapped their phones, revealing just how massive and intricate the organization truly was. Then came a fatal misstep. Terry slipped up on a phone call. For years, he and Meech had clashed over how much attention Meech's flashy lifestyle brought to BMF. But in the end, it wasn't Meech's lavish displays that got them caught. It was Terry discussing business over a tapped line. For 5 months, the feds listened in, piecing together 900 pages of evidence. By 2005, the DEA had built an airtight case. In October of that year, 17 BMF members were arrested, along with the seizure of millions in cash, drugs, and assets. Then came the hammer. Another 30 arrests followed, including both Meech and Terry. The numbers were staggering. Federal agents alleged that BMF had moved 2,500 kilos of cocaine a month at its peak, employing over 500 people. By the time the dust settled, roughly 150 people had been arrested. Meech and Terry, the masterminds, pled guilty and were each sentenced to 30 years. From slinging dime bags on Detroit streets to running a coast-to-coast empire worth hundreds of millions, they had built something that would become the stuff of legend. But no empire that large can last forever without catching the eye of the law. Fast forward to 2020, Terry caught a break. Citing COVID-19 concerns, he was released on house arrest. Meech's legal team tried to secure his release as well, but the government pushed back, claiming that Meech still glorified his criminal past and showed no signs of reforming. Even so, Meech found a small victory. Thanks to changes in sentencing guidelines, his release date, originally 2031, was pushed forward by a few years. It wasn't freedom, but it was progress. Finally, a few months ago, Meech walked free. But let's be honest, the legend of BMF is far from over. Things have been anything but calm. The drama's been heating up, and one of the main instigators, none other than 50 Cent. Why? Because Meech teamed up with Rick Ross on a project, and 50 wasn't having it. Before anyone could blink, 50 started claiming he had proof that Meech had snitched his way out of trouble. At first, people thought he might just be talking big, but then, boom, he brought receipts. First, he accused Tammy Cowens of helping Meech cooperate with the feds. Then, he dropped a new bombshell. Puffy's nephew, Bay, allegedly had an audio recording of a three-way call between him, 42 Doug, and Big Meech. Once that audio leaked, everything spiraled out of control. The call was exactly the kind of explosive drama people expected. Bay didn't hold back, grilling Meech with tough questions that had everyone buzzing. He demanded to know why Meech was still associating with Tammy Cowens, especially after the allegations that she'd helped the feds target BMF associates. If she'd really played a role in taking down his crew, why was she still in the picture? Instead of offering clarity, Meech got defensive. He made it clear he didn't owe anyone an explanation. Not Bay, not the streets, nobody. And if anyone thought he was snitching, he told them to go find the paperwork. Funny thing, 50 Cent claimed he already had that paperwork ready. Bay wasn't about to let it slide, though. He kept pushing, questioning why Meech never cut ties with Tammy despite all the allegations. And honestly, Bay had a point. Plenty of people were giving Meech the side-eye for not publicly addressing her alleged involvement. Then, right as the tension peaked, Meech suddenly hung up the call, leaving everyone talking. Once the audio hit the streets, Bay didn't hold back. He sat down with Dogface TV for a 30-minute interview where he spilled even more details. According to Bay, Meech knew all about Tammy's actions, claiming that the snitching allegations weren't just rumors. They were part of an actual deal. The accusation? Meech was supposed to get a lighter sentence if Tammy cooperated with the feds. And the real bombshell? There's paperwork to back it up. Legal documents reportedly show that Tammy met Dion Cuffey through Meech, which allegedly set off the chain of events that led to Cuffey's downfall. But it didn't stop there. Meech is also said to have introduced Fidel Suarez to Tammy, creating a situation where multiple individuals were caught up in what appears to be third-party cooperation. While Meech may have avoided heavier sentencing, Cuffey ended up doing time, which is why some people are quick to throw around the rat label. Meanwhile, 50 Cent has been closely watching the drama unfold, pulling out receipts and making sure everyone connected to his adversaries is put on blast. To add fuel to the fire, Big Meech and his son, Lil Meech, have been seen with individuals 50 has had long-standing beefs with, and then there's 50's ongoing feud with Lil Meech. He's been leaking messages, claiming Lil Meech tried to smooth things over and even threatened to cut him from the BMF show altogether. Just when it seemed like he might ease up, 50 doubled down, spreading substance abuse rumors and alleging that producers and cast members had witnessed it firsthand. He's even accused Big Meech of enabling his son's behavior. The whole situation has spiraled into chaos. Bebe keeps turning up the heat, 50 continues exposing documents, and the streets are demanding answers. With allegations flying and tensions escalating, it's clear this drama is far from over.